What's happening, cabinets? It's me, truly the dumbest. And before I start this video, I'm just gonna say this is like my third time trying to record this. So I apologize ahead of time if this gets super ranty and if I start going off into nothing because I have a lot to say on this. And of course, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, I love the Nostromo Wreckage. Like it is such a it's a perfect map. I'm just gonna say it. It's the best map in Dead by Daylight. In every way it's conceivable. It's amazing. It's perfect. There's so little wrong with this map. You have to be nitpicking, right? Like I managed to get Dead by Daylight on PC while it was on sale. So I was able to play during the PTB this time around. And, but outside of the tail feeling clunky, this chapter as a whole was great. I enjoyed it so much. I have no quarrel, no problem with anything from this chapter. And especially this map. This map is such a breath of fresh air. I like Toba Landing, and even then, I feel like that map can be a schlock to chase on, to play on as killer. Like, I can't deny that. As much as I like the map, I think the map can be a schlock. And I think a lot of the reason why that map falls so far for me is its shack. And I think the reason why the Nostromo doesn't feel like a schlock to play on is because it doesn't have shack. I've been saying this for a year now. I don't know if I've ever really mentioned it in a video, but this is a belief I've held for a while. I think shack retroactively ruins pretty much every map in this game. Like, I can't think of a single map where shack doesn't ruin the map. Like, sure, there are maps that I still like, I'm fine playing on. Sure, there are maps that you might still enjoy. Sure, there are maps that aren't atrocious, even with shack. But I feel like shack still drags those maps down just by such a steep margin, just by being there alone. And it's very clear why. And that's because shack itself, in concept, is meant to feel bad to play on, play against, play loop on. It's meant to feel bad. I don't know if they ever said this, but it's a pretty well known fact that shack is there just to be a guaranteed very strong loop for the killer. And I feel like by this point in Dead by Daylight's like history, there's no need for that anymore. And the Nostromo, I think, is the perfect example of it. Because not like this map manages to be incredibly compact. It is, I believe, the smallest single layered map in the game. We go to the game's 142 square meters, so it's even smaller than that on just a layer basis. I think Silent Hill, the Midwich is the no, even Midwich is bigger in size. It's the smallest map in the game. It's the smallest map in the game, and it doesn't feel like that. It feels every inch of this map is used to perfection. I just it's so hard to explain. I think this map has one of the biggest main buildings in the game too. And even in most maps, I feel like main building would also feel terrible. But for some reason, something about this map's main building, maybe it's because I'm a huge nerd. Maybe it's because I love the Alien franchise, and every time I play on this map, I just get hit with all of the stuff I love about it. But every time I play on this map, playing on this main building, playing just in general, looping as a killer, I don't feel like I'm playing a regular game of Dead by Daylight because I'm so used to all of this, for lack of better words, I guess, landfill of garbage that they just throw out on there. Like, if you really think about it, there isn't a great map in Dead by Daylight. Look at all the Azeroth's maps, right? Like, you look at Resting Place. You look at Azeroth's Resting Place, right? It's basically just it's easy to 3-gen. It's just a bunch of loops connected or at the center. It doesn't feel good. Blood Lodge is just packed with stuff. Its main building doesn't feel good. Gas Haven, its main building doesn't feel good. Wretched Shop, I don't have a whole lot of issue with Wretched Shop. I just feel like Shack really ruins it. Not even as a joke. Wrecker's Yard is pretty cool, but even then, I feel like I'd rather just its own main building than Shack. Every map in this game, those are just like, I guess, one set of realms, but like every map in this game, it feels like a Dead by Daylight map. You feel like you're playing Dead by Daylight every time you're on a map. Maybe that's just me. Maybe there's maps out there where you're like, man, playing on this map is such a different experience from normal Dead by Daylight. I feel like the closest we've gone from feeling like a different game while playing on a map is Toba Landing, and that's purely for its just super unique atmosphere. And even then, when you're playing on the map, you feel like you're playing a Dead by Daylight map. But while you're playing on the Nostromo Wreckage, at least for me, it didn't feel like I was playing a Dead by Daylight map. It felt like I was playing just a genuine, fun, well-rounded map. From its main building to its visuals to its like a shack, everything about this map just felt so good to me. And I really feel like that this map is just the perfect example of why we don't need shack anymore. I think this whole video is basically just going to be me looping back to the fact that I think shack should be a dead feature. I think, or not really feature, a dead and just dead. I think Shack should be gone. I think you could genuinely take out Shack from every map in this game, besides I guess Wrecker's Yard and Rotten Fields, and that map would skyrocket in quality. Let's look at Grave of Glendale for example, the Dead Dog Saloon. Now, while I still feel like its main building needs a rework, I think this map, what drags it down the most is the fact that there's a shack plopped right in the middle of it. Even though you already have like 5 loops connected, 5 very strong loops, by the way. You have the gallows, you have the all the empty space with all the bushes and stuff in the corner. Shack is what really I feel like brings this map down so much. If you were to replace Shack with even like one of its even like a tiny awful palette, like they added in the new area crows, it would feel so good. Like, cause you don't once you get gallows out of the way, like the little stagecoach palette at the gallows, right next to the gallows away, then you don't have to worry about them chaining it right next to right into Shack. You drop that pallet and you're like, okay, I guess they're gonna head off to that corner. I can leave, or they can run off into the map, and you're like, okay, now there's a much better chance that I can catch them now. Shack drags this map down so significantly to the point where I think it's like just a barely mid-tier map. I mean, main building, of course, also has a lot to do with it, but Shack in particular, I feel like is the main thing here. Because even if main building was still as it was, but you remove Shack, you still have such a strong, disgusting loop gone. So it makes main building feel much better in the long run because you don't have to deal with that and Shack. You just have to deal with that. If you look at another example, let's look at the reworked area crows. Now, once again, its main building is terrible. Most things you'll see in this most maps in this game have terrible main buildings, but the Nostromo. But it's Shack, I feel like, just drags it down again. Because every single map where its main building is even just barely below subpar and has a shack on it, those two things, when you throw them together, it makes the map feel terrible. You look at, let's say, Crotus Pren. Its main building is bad. It has shack. It has 2 really weird, not tentacles, arms that stick out. You remove shack, all you really have to worry about is main building. If you really think it, I feel like removing shack from every single map, but of course Ron Fields and Wrecker's Yard. I feel like if you remove shack from every map, every map would skyrocket in fun. Because every map, all you would have to worry about is its bad main building. Because let's be real, there's no genuinely good main building. Maybe besides Rancid Abattoir. But other than that, let's see. Nope. Yeah, maybe Sanctum of Wrath. Sanctum of Wrath doesn't really have a terrible main building. It does have Shack though, which, of course. There's really very few playable main buildings. Like they're very few, not playable because they're all playable to some degree. There's very few main buildings in this game where you just feel like it's not terrible, right? There's like maybe 3, 4, but I feel like mixing the bad main buildings in with Shack just makes everything feel terrible. I think I've repeated myself on that point like 6 times by now, but this is something that I just so firmly believe. Like, even if you set size aside, if you just took if Nostromo's like 3 tiles larger, 4 tiles larger maybe, it would still, I don't think it'd feel as bad. Because you don't have to worry about an awful main building, and you don't have to worry about Shack. You just play and it probably wouldn't feel as bad. I don't know. Maybe it's just a me thing. Maybe this is all just me ranting because I'm just bitter about this whole game's map or how this game's maps are turning out. But I really feel like Nostromo's a gigantic step in the right direction. Even if they still kept on putting out just trash pile worthy main buildings, even if the map was, they pump out large ass maps like they usually do, I feel like removing Shack would make everything significantly better. Because like, I can't really describe why, But Nostromo not having a shack makes it feel so much better to me. It makes every second of this map, every time a pallet is dropped, every time a resource is used, it makes everything about that feel like just it makes it feel more impactful towards the end game. It makes it feel more impactful in the long run. Because even then, you waste a pallet, like a survivor wastes a pallet, you can just run over to shack and you'd be looping forever. And even if when you do waste shack instantly, you still got the window, and the window is still a very strong window, like nothing to roll your eyes at all. I feel like shack should be a piece of map design that they leave behind. And I feel like they could honestly remove every shack from almost every single map in this game. And people would notice, but they notice in a good way. They would think, man, everything feels so much better now. Everything feels so much nicer, so much smoother to play on. And that's because they don't have shack, right? I feel like behavior should definitely invest in the idea of slowly, if not instantly, phasing shack out of every map. Because even if you took atrocious, awful, bad maps, like let's say Grim Pantry, absolutely awful map, you remove shack from that little center bit, and it significantly gets better because you don't have to worry about shack bridging the gap between the left and the right little hemisphere of the building. Sure, you still have the main building. Sure, you still have that weird little freaking little off hut thing, but you don't have to deal with shack. So it's like removing a huge. It's like removing. God, I'm sorry. Like I said, this is really ranty. But like, let's say you have a stack of weights on your back. I feel like removing shack as just a core element of map design would be removing one of those weights, maybe even two of those weights off the back of the players of the map team, because they don't have to worry about balancing shack. They can just remove shack, and then everything would be better. Even if they replaced every single shack in all of these maps with a new tile, like not even like a not even like even if it was like a filler, even if it was a new tile that's consistent throughout every map, even if they replaced it with a guaranteed trash pile, I still feel like it would overall feel better. Maybe not, no, maybe not replace it with a guaranteed trash pile. That was a terrible idea. Don't listen to that. I genuinely feel like though removing shack from every map in this game would make every map more feel better. It'd make the gameplay feel faster. I feel like it would just help so much. And I feel like Nostromo is a perfect example of that. I think behavior should start looking towards what they did with Nostromo and start implementing it into newer maps, into older maps, all of the above. Because we still have a lot of maps, in my opinion, that need solid reworking. All of the swamps, a little bit of the Crotus Pren maps. Still got a few of the cold winds to go through. A few of the suffocation. A few of the Macmillan estates. Still got still got Mother's Dwelling. They got to go back and do. Got Springwood. There's so much in this game map wise that needs an overhaul. I feel like the map development of side of this game is truly the only thing remaining that holds this game back from feeling just great overall. Maybe their add-on team, maybe their add-on development needs a bit of tweaking, but even then I don't even think their add-ons are as impactful as maps, because that's what you do. This whole game consists of you playing on a map. I mean, even if you think that I'm crazy, maybe you think like I don't think. Maybe if you're thinking like Shaq doesn't need to disappear, look at everybody's reaction to Nostromo compared to Toba Landing, compared to Garden of Joy, compared to the Borgo, compared to all these other maps that feel bad to play on. And I'm sure you'll see once you start looking at what makes some maps better than others, you'll start connecting the dots. You'll be like, why does Nostromo feel so much better than these maps? It's small, it has no shack, and its main building is well rounded. Those are the three things I feel like that goes into making a great map: the size, the shelters, and the shacks. The triple S. And maybe a bit of filler loops a little bit, but even then, I really feel like the Nostromo is just the prime example of a good Dead by Daylight map, and I'm actually excited to see what other maps they got in store for us now in the future. I'm hoping I'm honestly I'm holding out for Predator and FNAF. I feel like both of those are the most prominent titles that could probably go out within the next couple chapters. Since we know both the next two chapters are going to be licensed, they could both pump out great maps, but they could also pump out awful maps. All it depends on is if they follow the structure of the Nostromo. No shack, Small size, decent shelters, or main buildings, or side buildings, because Borgo has like 100 different buildings. I really feel like the only outlier to this whole no shack thing is is Haddonfield, because Haddonfield is honest to God just awful even without Shack. But we don't really talk about Haddonfield because it's never been good. Nonetheless, though, that's all for me. This is a horrible rant, and maybe I'll see you again soon. We can only hope, can't we?